risk to rescue hundreds of thousands of people. And I want you to remember that of those something like 1,500 people who have received medals for their Hashem, for their bravery, at least 75 of them are Muslims, 100 or so of them are Sikhs, and dozens of them are Hindus, and many of them don't believe in anything or have other orientations. But they all have one thing in common. They knew what was right or wrong, and they chose to do what was right. As opposed to the others, who knew fine and well what was right and what was wrong.
I'm going to do a prayer which links up COVID-19 and also with the Holocaust as well. These have certainly been unprecedented times. COVID-19 brought all communities together, where everyone in the world faced the same calamity, regardless of their faith, creed, colour or status. Together we made a difference. Let us reflect on how this pandemic has brought people together and related to past calamities. Let us pray in remembrance of the lives lost during the Holocaust and in recognition of the people who helped victims. O Lord, in times of uncertainty and distress, bring us under the shadow of your mercy and comfort us. Give us sympathy and resilience to care for those in need. Give us empathy and compassion to love our neighbours. Safeguard the fearful and tend to the sick. Be close to the ill and isolated. In their loneliness bring consolation. In their darkness be their light. We pray for all who have suffered in body, mind or spirit, and for all who have been bereaved. May they find healing, hope and comfort. We give thanks for the friendships that are built between different faith and community groups. We pray that you help us grow in understanding and work together for the good of all. We pray for peace in our communities, our nation and our world. We give thanks for all who seek to resolve conflicts and tensions. O Lord, help us all to live peacefully together, in spite of our differences in colour, race and religion, remembering that we are all your creation. O Lord, help us to trust you. Help us to know that you are with us. Help us not to be people of fear, but people of courage. Help us not to protect just our own safety, but protect our neighbour's safety. Help us not to be people of greed, but people of generosity. We are all your people, giving and loving wherever we are, whatever it costs, as long as it takes, wherever you call us. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Amen.
Environmental hardships and trouble. Every trouble with its upland and every diversity with the sale of nothing to the suit of the servant. There is no shelter and asylum for him except under the wing of thy protection, preservation, God with us. O thou kind Lord, unite all. Let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one
First times, during the time of the examples of the Lord was memorial. And this year, we will release to those who liberated others and those who rescued others. And I asked for the regards who carry the legacy of the unfound soldier and the family to lay the wreath to those who rescued others. us amongst all men. Amen.
Person that brings everybody together of all backgrounds and all religions and all races under the idea that we are all British and we're one people, and I think that's the important message that I hope will come out of this year's Jubilee. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for coming today to this very important occasion, and thank Havering Council for their organisation of this, which they do brilliantly every year. And to say how proud I am to be a Member of Parliament in a borough where we don't have very many divisions, if any at all, where there is kindness and friendship and tolerance to all. And there is nowhere that epitomises that more strongly, I think, than here in the Romford and District Synagogue, at which we have always been made so welcome and to feel part of a family here in Romford. So, Lee, ladies and gentlemen, Father Simpson, Father Hingley, thank you for your leadership of today's service as well, and may I wish you all a very successful year ahead. Let's hope it's better 2022 than 2021. Thank you very much indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we normally have a guest speaker at these occasions, but this year we've decided to go in-house. And so myself and Sidra Naim, who, if I'm allowed to say, is a deputy lieutenant of somewhere foreign, Essex or London or something, some foreign part of the world. But it's a great pleasure to have her here as well. And what we want to do is just emphasise a little bit what I was talking about earlier. And that is the fact that so many people from so many different religions were not just victims of Holocaust, but were heroes of it as well. Everybody's heard of Oscar Schindler. I wonder if you've ever heard of Princess Catherine Dalip Singh. Good. She was the second daughter of the Maharaja Dalip Singh, a woman who used her wealth and her influence to help German Jewish families escape from Germany and come over, of all places, to England. She was a suffragette. She was a woman who belonged to the LGBT community long before it existed. And she used her courage to help those less fortunate than herself, especially in times of disaster. Just let me give you a tiny little bit of background to her. She was the daughter of the youngest son of the Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who died when her father, Dalip, was only 5 years old. One of the darker sides of British history brought him over here so that he could not succeed his father to be the Maharaja in India. But he found himself at the court of Queen Victoria, and such was the closeness between them that he was allowed to keep the title Maharaja, and in fact Her Majesty became the godmother to his children. One of his children was Catherine. She was born on the 27th of October 1871 in Knightsbridge. Unable to return to India, she, with her siblings, were looked after in Hampton Court, and remained here. She first met her governess, Fraulein Rena Schäfer, who was from Kassel in Germany, when she was only 12 years old. And it became the start of a long-lasting relationship. In 1890, she attended Somerville Hall in Oxford, and then was introduced to British high society at a debutante's ball, along with her sisters. Her older sister, Sophia, is recognised more as an activist of the suffragettes, together with that famous one, Emmeline Parkhurst. Catherine played an influential role in that movement as well, but she moved in different circles, being that little bit younger. At the opening of one of her campaigns in 1912, she said, "At this critical stage of our cause, no effort and no sacrifice can be too great. We all want your help if we're going to win our cause during this present succession." And on she went. But during and after the Second World War, it was to Germany that she turned her mind, remembering that her governess had been a German. She noted that at one point there were so many German Jewish refugees required that she spent her money bringing them over to England. It was noted that this lovely mansion that she had in Buckinghamshire had so many Jews in it that the locals used to call it Little Poland. But besides Jewish refugees, Catherine also gave shelter to children who were evacuated from London, who had come in because of the heavy bombing of the Luftwaffe. And among them was a girl called Shirley Pinster, who together with her two brothers had come from Ealing. The only condition that Catherine placed for taking in evacuees was that they should be accompanied by an adult. So Shirley's mother, who was a school teacher, came along with them. And she continued to look after these refugees from Germany and from London for the rest of her life. On the 8th of November 1942, she passed away from a heart attack and has remained largely forgotten. Until July 1997, when Swiss banks published a long list of 5,000 unclaimed bank accounts from the end of the war. Largely, they were from victims of the Holocaust. And these included on a vault last operated in the 1930s at the UBS AG Bank in Bern, where there was a joint account belonging to a Catherine Dalip Singh and a lady called Lena Schäfer, if you remember, was her governess. According to this 2001 India Today report, a tribunal eventually declared that Catherine's estate, which had amounted to £100,000, should go to the family of Karim Baksh Supra of Pakistan, who had worked for Princess Bamba and Sophia, who were her older sisters. It was at that point that the true story of Catherine, the Princess of India, became known. And it was discovered that this woman, a princess who was a Sikh, had helped thousands of children be escaped from Germany or be evacuated from London and be looked after during and after the war. I hope I'm not going to steal any of Sidra's work. I usually do, unfortunately, when I speak first. Thank you very much. I just want to name one other person. Let's do this one. The person I'm referring to now is an Algerian religious leader called Sakkat Ben-Rabinit. He was a Muslim cleric, and for part of his life, he served semi-officially also as a diplomat. Among other things, he contributed to the border agreement between French Algeria and Morocco. And this made him a popular person on both sides of the Mediterranean. In the 1920s, the French government decided to build a grand mosque in Paris. Pity we can't have one in Mumford. It was to commemorate the 100,000 Algerian Muslims who died during World War I, fighting for the French. Through this institution, immigrants from different countries could apply for support and come and acclimatise into the new city. And the care after the temple was entrusted to this Ben-Rabinit, who became its rector. The truth about the role of the Grand Mosque during the Holocaust didn't come to light until many years after it. During the war, he had saved the lives of at least 500 Jews, including an Algerian singer called Salim Halali. For people of Jewish origin, he arranged for forged documents to prove that they actually all had Muslim roots. This enabled them to avoid arrest or subsequent deportation to several concentration camps. The young generation of followers of Islam and Judaism need to understand their common history. From Nazi concentration camps, they both worked together to help each other. And while we can all have in our minds this idea that Muslims and Jews don't get on very well, or sit very uncomfortably together at the table as cousins who only ever meet at weddings, bar mitzvahs and funerals, there's an awful lot more that keeps us together. Not our religion, not our customs, not our way of life, our plain, simple, basic humanity. And as I mentioned to you before, there are dozens of them who have been recognized and rewarded for saving Jews. It is famously known that Iran had an ambassador in Berlin who, when he saw what was going on, wrote to the Germans and said to them, "There's no such thing as a Jewish Iranian. We're all just Iranians." He took away the passports of every Iranian in the place and reissued them. The word religion had been omitted, because to him, religion didn't matter. And thousands upon thousands of Jews went to Iran. The other very famous national one is Albania, a Muslim country. Before the war, with a thriving Jewish community. It's one of the few countries in the world that had more Jews in it after the war than before. And that was because, again, they took in as many Jews as they could possibly get their hands on. And like Morocco, became the friendliest country to Jews shortly after the war. Are you ready to be thrown into the deep end?
Yes,
I want to introduce Sidra Naim, who is, as I said, a deputy lieutenant. She is also the hardest working member of the Havering Interfaith Forum, and she goes around teaching interfaith as well as Islam in schools and in various other institutions. and she's going to continue where I've left off.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm also Secretary of the Having Interfaith Forum as well. I'm very grateful actually to Rabbi Lee for asking me to cover the history of how Muslims helped during the victims of the Holocaust. Now, when I started researching into this, there were actually hundreds and hundreds of Muslims that have helped in so many different ways around the world, the victims in the Holocaust, but I only selected very few because I know I've only got 15 minutes. So why has this never been brought up before? The media want to see Muslims and Jews fighting. The media want to see conflicts between Palestine and Israel. So they never cover these kinds of things. And something like this is very, very important to show that there originally was unity. And all these other conflicts are all about land, power and money. It's nothing really about the religion. Because all religions, they all tell us to be peaceful and live in harmony with each other. So why would Muslims want to help? First of all, we believe that we are all the descendants of Adam, and we're all related to one another. And as you can see, this is the timeline, and there's so many Jewish prophets. We believe in all of those Jewish prophets. They're all in the Quran as well. So we believe we're all one nation, and we should all look after each other. And Islam is actually comes down from Judaism and Christianity. It's within the same line. So all of this should all unite really the whole world. Also, Islam is supposed to be respectful of other beliefs. If they're not, then again that's due to land, power and money. But according to our religion, Islamic law protects the status of minorities. So if there is a whole country full of Muslims, and there's even one Jewish person living in that country, we, through Islamic law, are supposed to protect that Jewish person. Islamic law also permits non-Muslims to set up their own courts and implement their own family laws. Prophet Muhammad himself had a very peaceful nature. He was very tolerant, and he was very highly protective of the non-Muslim minorities living in the Muslim state. And there is actually a saying which the Prophet said, whoever oppresses any non-Muslim, I shall be his prosecutor on the day of judgment. And even before the Holocaust happened, there was religious tolerance amongst Muslims. So in 1492, Spanish monarchs decided to expel all Jews from Spain. And the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II ordered his navy to rescue persecuted Jews and offer the safety in the Ottoman Empire. So, if you think about it, the most number of Jews are within the Middle East, because that's where Judaism started. Yet, there has never been a Holocaust to date in the Middle East. And the Middle East, at the moment, if you think about it, is majority Muslims. The Holocaust only really happened in Europe, didn't it? So I'm going to now cover the exact Holocaust period on how Muslims actually helped. So I've got a picture here. 1947, Jewish refugees arrived in Palestine. And it was actually 1948 is when the State of Israel was founded afterwards. This picture here shows the poor Jews when they ran out of the Holocaust and they fled to Palestine, and they were offered actually new clothes and shoes by the Palestinian people. It's because the refugees they entered and they entered in such a terrible, terrible state after the Holocaust. Very, very sad. Now, like I said, there's actually at least 100 characters that I can name who helped within the Holocaust, but I'm only covering the most prominent ones. The next one is actually one which Rabbi Lee did touch on, which is actually a mosque, the Grand Mosque of Paris. Jewish refugees were given papers declaring they were Muslim and members of the mosque to protect them from persecution. Did you know they were also given 1,600 ration cards, one per person, to help them? And all of this story is actually in this book. This book is here, The Grand Mosque of Paris. It's by Karen Gray and Deborah Durland. And the whole story of how that mosque actually helped the Jews, the Jewish victims during the Holocaust, is documented in that book. So you can actually buy this book. Okay? Some extra things Rabbi Lee did mention as well. There is actually one lady, okay,
I've heard of her, yes.
Muslim lady.
Yep.
She's actually very famous
Yes.
in
She
Britain.
is,
There's a
yes.
the film called Spy. Very interesting. I read the book about it.
Correct. There is actually a film made on her,
Yeah.
and it is called The Spy, and we should all watch that because it's all true facts. Well done. Clever person there in the audience. So Noor Inayat Khan was her name. She was an SOE agent in occupied France. She devoted the whole of her life to fighting the Nazis during World War II.
And there's a blue plaque for her just alongside the University College Hospital.
Is there?
There
Yes, there
is,
is.
yes, good, well done. I'm going to actually put up pictures of that in a minute, so you could come here and give a talk.
No, I did
Okay.
know about it.
So she served in the Special Operations Executive, which is the SOE, and as an SOE agent she became the first female wireless operator to be sent from the UK into occupied France to aid the France resistance during World War II. Inayat Khan unfortunately was captured after being betrayed and executed at the Dachau concentration camp. Yeah, Dachau. You know more better than more than I do. So and then she was killed, unfortunately. Very, very sad. This is actually her memorial bust at Gordon Square Gardens, Bloomsbury, London. She was also awarded the George Cross for her services in the SOE, and that is actually the highest civilian decoration in the United Kingdom. And this plaque here has got her name on it as well, and that's at Dachau. I said that correctly? Memorial Hall. And her name is actually on here as well. This is the Air Forces Memorial at Runnymede, England, memorialising those without going on the grave. Okay, so these are all some of the things that we've actually got here in Britain to show us that that actually did happen. Moving on to another person, this is Behik Erkin. He is a Turkish ambassador in Paris, he was, and he provided citizenship papers and passports to thousands of Jews. He arranged their evacuation by rail across Europe. And Nekdet Kent, Turkish Consul General in Marseille, prevented the shipment of 80 Jews to Germany by forcing his way onto the train and arranging for their return unharmed to France. So there's another very prominent character. There's another one. His name is Ahmed Somia. He was a Tunisian doctor this time. And he was actually a co-director of the French Muslim hospital just outside France. And right from the beginning of the Nazi occupation of France, these are some of the things that he did. He organized weapons supplies. He facilitated resistance radio transmissions. He treated wounded resistance fighters. He organized underground network to cure and protect resistance fighters and Jews by hiding them in fake TB wards, where the Gestapo and French soldiers feared to go. So this is how he protected them. He saved and cured Jews in his private practice from 1943, and he also took part in the liberation of the deportation camp in Transi on 18th August 1943. Another person called Khalid Abdul Wahab, he also sheltered at least 24 Jews in Tunisia as well. So Khalid Abdul Wahab, Tunisian Muslim. So German troops occupied Vichy, Tunisia in 1942 in November. French Tunisia was then a home to approximately 100 Jews. Under the Nazi anti-Semitic policies, they were forced to wear yellow badges and were subject to fines and having their property confiscated. So basically this man, he saved several Jewish families from Nazi persecution in Vichy, Tunisia during the Holocaust. Tunisia was another very important place, as well as France, and Albania is the next stop where I'm now moving on to. Okay, this is another person who you may have heard of. This was actually a young girl called Johanna Newman. She was born in Hamburg, Germany. Her story is actually documented in the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. And there was a family, Pilkus, Muslim family in Albania, who harbored young Johanna Newman and her mother in their home during the German occupation, and convinced others that the two were family members who were visiting from Germany. And this is actually her own words, which are written in the museum. She said they put their lives on the line to save us. If it had come out we were Jews, the whole family would have been killed. 200 Jews lived in Albania before World War II, yet by the war's end, 2,000 Jews lived there because many had fled from Greece, Austria, and other locations within Europe to take shelter among the predominantly Muslim population which hid and protected them. And Eastern Europe has offered many, many examples of Muslims actually helping the refugees within the Holocaust. In fact, I've been to one exhibition as my role as a DL in Basildon, and the whole exhibition was actually dedicated to people within Albania who had helped within the Holocaust. So I've covered the main ones. I've got another 4 which I'm going to cover in the form of a video, and we will just need to read actually what is written on the video, and that will cover 4 more prominent Muslims who helped the refugees within the Holocaust, the victims. Okay, so that's just a snapshot really of everything, you know, which a few Muslims did. Has anybody got any questions? You can ask me whichever you like. Anybody? Have you all been listening? Yes.
What's gone wrong with Iran now? Do you know? I mean,
You know what the problem is it's all about land, power and money, isn't it? So it all depends on whoever is ruling the country, and they bring in their own laws. And the problem is that people in power are not always people of religion. It's all about land, power and money. What can they gain from it? That's where all these conflicts have then happened. You know, even if you think about Palestine and Israel, this conflict, it's all about land. Who's going to get the most land? Whoever gets the most land will have the more power. Who's going to have more power? Is it going to be the Muslims? Is it going to be the Jews? But if everybody were religious, and we had religious laws in place, and none of all that fighting and bombing and all that other stuff would happen, would it?
You still get people, even in a perfect world, you still get people, whether it's Muslim fighting Muslim, Jew fighting Jew, it's all a case of power.
Yes.
And it's not a case of the common person. I don't care what someone's religion is, colour or creed. I see people on face value. If you're a good person, you're a good person. And unfortunately, we don't live in a good world. We live in a very judgmental world. And I know through what I've gone through in the last year or so, yeah. And when people say about religion, it's not about religion. Religion should be forgotten until we can start being human. When we start being human, then talk about religion. Because at the end of the day, our neighbours, whoever they are, we don't look at their religion. I don't know if I'm in trouble. I don't look at my neighbour saying, "Oh, she's Jewish," or I look at my neighbour as my neighbour.
Yes. That is true. That is very true, because people of religion can still be bad. We know Hitler. I mean, let's look at the Holocaust. Hitler was a practicing Christian. He used to go to church every Sunday. I read his biography, and look at what he did. So it's humans, it's humanity, and you know, unfortunately, greed can then get in the way, which then that's what spoils the world, really. Okay, good, well done. Anybody else got any comments or questions before I finish off? No? Where's Rabbi? All right then, is that okay?
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Let me just mention one thing. We've only touched the slightest skim of the tip of an iceberg. Just to remember that when every conflict, there's always been people out there helping others. In India and Pakistan, Sikhs have helped Hindus, Hindus have helped Sikhs, have helped Muslims, Muslims have helped them both. In Ireland, Catholics and Protestants have helped each other. Wherever you go, people can do good as well as bad. And ultimately, it is only the choice of every human being whether they want to do what's right or what's wrong. And they all know what's right and what's wrong. And I know that you're all thirsty and hungry and you need to get up. So I'm going to keep quiet and thank you all very much for being here.